Wanted to welcome everyone to our first Moving Industry Roundtable. I'm Wonjun Jeong. I'm the CEO of Supermove. Really excited to have you all here, tuning in from all parts of the world. If you don't know about Supermove, we're on a mission to make moving simple with software that brings your whole entire team together, from sales, operations, dispatch, to coordinators, all in one system. And our main objective is to help moving companies become successful, right? More efficient, more profitable. And that's how the main topic for this panel came about. Especially with the current economic climate, we wanted to discuss current challenges in the moving industry and how to survive an upcoming recession. Heidi met Kevin Ankenbauer from NorthAmerican last year and reached out to him to have him on our live Q&A series. Kevin's live Q&A was extremely well attended, probably one of the best attended to date. And he pitched the idea back then of having this expanded to a panel, and we're finally making it happen. And we're so excited to also have Matt and Daniel join us. So quick note, we'll be sending a brief note after the survey for feedback on this roundtable. We always want to make things better and improved for every one of you. And we also want to hear about what topics you want to hear about in the future. We will be doing more of these. So if you're open to joining us as a panelist, like one of these lovely gentlemen in the future, please let us know in the survey as well. There'll be a section to sign up and join live Q&As as well too. So without further ado, today we're joined by Daniel Siracusa, owner at Siracusa Moving, and Matt Larmore, vice president of sales, co-owner of Bayshore Allied Van Lines and ShoreView, NorthAmerican Van Lines, and Kevin Ankenbauer, president of NorthAmerican, to talk about these current challenges in the moving industry and how to survive in the recession. So I'll pass it off to Heidi, who will be the main moderator for this today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Wonjun. And for everyone tuning in, we have so many people that are here joining us live. I want to provide some background on their companies first and then have them expand. So first we have Siracusa Moving and Storage based in New Britain, Connecticut. They were founded in 1978 with one truck. In 92, Siracusa Moving and Storage joined Allied Van Lines and has since become one of their largest agents. NorthAmerican, headquartered in San Antonio, has been named Agent of the Year for NorthAmerican Van Lines now 13 times out of the past 18 years and has won it 10 years in succession. Bayshore and ShoreView are family-owned and operated companies with third and fourth generations owning and running the businesses. Bayshore is the Allied agent based in Delaware and Virginia, and ShoreView is a NorthAmerican agent based in Delaware, Virginia, and Florida. We have some stellar companies represented here, and I'm really excited for this conversation. As always, I'll start off by asking questions submitted during registration. And if you guys have a question, please type it in the Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom screen, and we'll be addressing them throughout. So to kick it off, I'd love to know, how did you all get started in the industry and what keeps you in it? Matt, would you like to start off?
Sure. Thanks, Heidi. First of all, thanks for the opportunity to talk with all our peers. It's been fun the last 10 minutes getting text messages from many friends around the country commenting on the setup. So I'll try to ignore that during this. Like many on the call, probably my brother and I, fourth generation, as Heidi mentioned, grew up on the back of the truck, breaking down packed material with a pocket knife, folding pads, and just got bit by the moving bug. As far as why do I stay in it, why do we stay in it, it's what we do. It's in our blood, literally, and it's fun. No two phone calls are the same. You never know what you're going to get into. There's days that are stressful, but then that makes the rewarding days that much better. So yeah, that's kind of our background.
You want to move to Kevin?
Oh, well, Heidi, thanks for having me again. It's always a pleasure to work with you, of course. And thanks, Supermove, for allowing me to be on this panel. I'm not a generational mover. I came into the business a couple of years out of college. I was in public accounting, and I came through the financial side. So I had to learn the business later in my life, but I did learn it quick and fast because coming through the financial side and understanding how the business works to make the financial metrics work is probably why I was a quick learner of the business. I agree with Matt totally. It's a unique business. It's a very unique business. There's no two days that are alike. That's that kind of excitement for me is what kept me in the business. The excitement of helping employees advance and through leadership training and leadership programs, and then just watching a driver start in your company as a packer and then go to be a loader and become an employee driver and all the way to the owner operator. It was exciting for me to help those people advance and build a winning team. So that's what kept me in the business, is them.
And then moving got into your blood after joining?
Are you asking me the question?
No, I was just to Kevin. He, didn't come from the industry, but then moving got into his blood.
It did. And it's addictive. That's all I can tell you. It's like he said, the moving bug bit me. It's very addictive because it's exciting.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. And you, Dan?
I had a very interesting entree into the moving business. Prior to starting right after graduating college, I represented a line of pocketbooks. I sold a pocketbook to a guy who owned a moving company, and eventually wound up helping him in the mornings, moving furniture. So I started it in 1979 by myself. And, what really keeps me into it is I kind of think of myself as a steward and not an owner of a business. So I owe it to my people, my drivers, to kind of keep it going, the brand. We have a lot of brand loyalty. I mean, obviously loyal to these guys and many others on the call here. I still enjoy the job, able to run it fiscally. I have some family members in, so we stay active in it. And a lot of it deals too with the driver loyalty and the people who rely on the job here.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, it's a very relationship heavy industry, and being able to advance your movers or drivers, that's so much power as a leader. So I really love to hear that. I'm just gonna jump on in. The moving industry has been changing so much over the past few years, especially with COVID. I'm just curious on your end, what are those biggest changes, and what are you guys doing as within your companies to kind of address those big challenges and changes?
I'll go first on that, Heidi. What we've seen over the last 2 to 3 years during COVID and with the industry is capacity is becoming a premium. Anybody that has a truck or a driver, anybody has warehouse availability or staff to be able to take shipments into the warehouse is golden, right? And so capacity is driving the changes that we see at Ward. So we've become more of a do-it-yourself type mover, where we're hooked up into the NorthAmerican Van Lines network, but you can rely less on the network because they're under the same constraints. All these agents are under the same constraints that we are. And so it's harder and harder to get more network support than you used to be able to get 5-6 years ago. So you have to become more ingenuitive. You got to be more creative to figure out how to get your customers taken care of using your own resources. So that's been a big change for us, is to develop those creations of how we can do more with less.
Dan, what about you? What do you see as the biggest changes?
My answer would be very similar to Kevin's. I mean, obviously, the lack of capacity, lack of staffing out there, labor sources. We became like our own internal minor van line, competing. We had a big problem competing for labor, losing key people due to the work at home was a big problem. Basically, people in sectors of the employee count just dropping out of the workforce, not working at all, obviously getting paid and staying home. Supply chain issues, number one problem. Parts for trucks, availability of rental trucks, We had to naturally become more independent and self-reliant. We had a year of it. So the second year we were, a lot more advanced with our planning. We had equipment rented and staged around the country. So it was a lot better in year two of COVID.
What's been the main reason for becoming more independent? I know that you are an allied agent, but what's that
Lack
shift?
of help from other people because they're so busy as well. They lost people. They don't have the available staff like they did before. Lack of warehousing space due to the large military traffic moving. So it was a perfect storm of capacity. Everybody down in the chain had problems. Customer service had to spend another hour or two on each file. So it's just a domino effect, created a domino effect.
Yeah, that makes sense. Matt, what are you saying?
Yeah, Heidi, maybe take a little bit further on what Dan was saying. It's every business, all the way down to the trash companies that support us to keep our compactors emptied or to open tops pulled. Because as I think probably everybody on the phone here around the country, the minute your trash dock or where your area is clogged up, then it's not safe. It doesn't look good. But from just chasing everything down, and every business felt it, whether it's the companies that we lean on to disconnect appliances before we load or hook them back up after delivery, their network shrank. That industry relies on mom and pops literally around the country, so that shrank. And then on the tail end, 20-some% of moves have a damage claim filed for the industry. Well, there's less repair firms now because a lot of those small offices just couldn't survive COVID. So, to Dan's point, whether it's customer service operations, you're spending an extra hour just to do the 360 view, make sure your driver's covered, your customer's going to get covered. And it's just, I'm not going to say exhausting, because as movers, you don't give up, you figure it out. So the biggest impact is needing to, and I think Dan kind of alluded to this, look in the horizon, what's coming, what do you need to anticipate? Have an extra tractor on the yard, just because when a driver does have one go in the shop, it's not coming out tomorrow. It's not coming. You'd be lucky if it comes out in 2 weeks. But yet that customer's goods on the trailer, they don't want to hear that. So just a lot more micromanaging your downstream providers, your partners.
And with those changes, from COVID, and it's continuing to bleed into the new year. I just want to know, what are some current challenges that you're facing as a leader? Dan, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, we put a higher attention and value on quality over profit. So, one of the major aspects and the attention we're faced with is to kind of keep our quality up, our image up, having all of the systems around it working, making sure we have the right staff administratively to handle it. We have enough driver count out there to handle the demand. Being real, I feel like I'm the little old woman in the shoe with many different things added to me. She had thousands of kids in that shoe, and I feel like I'm having to keep the pieces together of many of the departments and making sure all the flow goes together. So that's kind of our biggest concerns. Obviously, streamlining cost as well.
Yeah, quality is definitely. I hope that as people continue to grow and scale, that the quality stays the same. I feel like that's hard to do, but yeah. Matt, what are some of the current challenges you're facing?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest, the whole world is tired of stress. So my brother and I and our key managers were spending a lot of time just trying to figure out how to bring a little bit of calm to everybody. Maybe that's difficult to explain, but if we can get the frontline crews to do everything they're supposed to, so that there's less issues downstream. But then when we are talking with employees or team members or drivers, you need to approach it calmer. I think right now, while it's tough to find good people, when you have them, you want to hold on to them. We're very fortunate, like many movers around the country, we have great people. Many of them have been with us decades. They feel like family, but you can't approach your team members as aggressive. You need to be calmer at every level of management. So trying to get that sense of calm through doesn't mean we're complacent. To Dan's point, right now, quality is most important because in a downturn, it's also a good opportunity to grab market share. So if you can just do it a little bit better, and efficiencies. And, to your point, as far as with Supermove, trying to find ways to make it more efficient from start to end. We'll talk about technology, I think, at some point here, but the calm is really what Andy and I, my brother, we're focusing on. How do we, because we want to maintain the team, so whenever this is over, we're still there running in the race.
Yeah. Staying calm as a leader during stressful situations, I feel like is something that all moving company leaders have to learn to do. So, Kevin, are you good at that?
Yeah. The biggest challenges that I see that I would face is first and foremost is our labor. The current labor market, moving is extremely hard work, and getting our younger labor force to want to do moving is getting more and more difficult that I see. So you have to figure out a way that you're going to get people interested in getting into the moving business. And you do that, to me, two ways. A, you have advancement opportunities for them to be able to start somewhere and go to somewhere. In the 20 years ago, you could get somebody in the moving industry and they'd be a packer for 20 years and they do a great job of it, or they'd be a loader, or they would be a helper, or whatever. But today, your younger crowd, your younger labor force is always looking for a way to move up, and you better have that. You better create that advancement opportunity for people to kind of position themselves to do that. So getting people interested in the moving business just can't be because we pay well or something. They're looking for more than that. And so you better be able to figure out how to do that. And the second thing is really, and we're working with Supermove on this a little bit, on helping you build out your long haul interstate program, is today your drivers are more selective of what they want to do. So one says, I don't want to do mountains. I don't want to do East Coast. I don't want to do West Coast. I don't do Northeast. I don't do Northwest. You have to have the software, or you have to figure out how you can expound on the efficiencies of drivers that are being more selective of what they're willing to do and how long they're willing to stay out. 20 years ago, you could get an owner op to stay out 8 weeks and 10 weeks, and they'd run the whole summer and not come home. And today, that isn't the case. Now, there's some that will do it, but for the most part, they want to be home every week to 2-3 weeks now, and they want to run in and out. They want to stay regional and so forth. So software will create the efficiencies to be able to help manage those selective drivers that want to stay, because managing a fleet of drivers, especially if you have a large fleet and you have a large pool of bookings, you better figure out how the system can manage that for you, because it's almost becoming impossible to manage manually. That's a big concern for me, that system get implemented.
Yeah, I love that you touched on that, Kevin. A lot of the questions in the chat box right now are actually hitting on this big challenge in the industry today about hiring being the #1 problem, retention especially. So some of the questions are about, what are some recruiting and retention strategies that you have implemented to keep up with other companies and industries, and how do you hire for these positions? And thanks for hitting on that, Kevin. Matt or Daniel, do you guys have anything to also add to that?
I mean, that's your #1 goal is to recruit, and you have to have a great contract for your drivers, great services internally, be creative with them. We have a fly home program. We give 4 free flights a year per driver. So if they get to a place or they'll take a load, but they have I have a guy right now that has to take his granddaughter to Halloween. So he's out in California finishing. We'll put him on a plane. We'll send him to New York, and he'll take his granddaughter out for Halloween. And it's all those innovations. And if you're not willing to belly up to the bar and spend money, you're just not going to recruit drivers. You know, you have to have we'd all be the same if we didn't have separate kind of contracts and deals, you know? So one other thing, next week, we give a vacation to every one of our drivers. So next week, November 1st, everybody gets a check for a vacation. Again, it costs me a lot of money to do that, but we have driver loyalty. Other people will join the company as a result, hearing those things. And it's, again, being creative and trying to find a way, you know?
Yeah, I think just to kind of add to it real quick, you know, there's different lines, like Dan mentioned, kind of the focus on the long haul driver. You know, Kevin was expanding upon labor all the way up through. I agree with everything that Kevin said. I think what we've been forced to do is change how we're going in recruiting. You know, so for the labor pool, that's maybe more on the terminal level. The traditional days, they don't exist anymore. So we have found some opportunities more through internet driven, a little bit more social media, that, you know, we have to get out of our own way and find firms that can help us with that. Probably the most important thing is take care of the people you have, or else all you're doing is replacing. But it's a struggle everybody's having. So I think the creative ideas that Kevin and Dan mentioned are there. And I think the challenge with that next generation of the helpers, let's just talk about the labor, because the driver's no good if he or she doesn't have someone to help carry the furniture out, is keep the phone in your pocket, give us 8 to 10 hours of hard work. And it's just finding that breed. It doesn't exist as much as it did, you know, 10, 15 years ago.
So yeah, thank you all for sharing. It seems like even at a company like Supermove, like recruiting is a big focus. Hiring the right people and retaining them is a big focus for our company too, even as a software company. My question would that I was curious about, do you think finding and retaining top talent is about the creative ideas, like the things that you're doing that maybe no one else has really considered, or is it more of like a general process, like a lot of hard work, grit, in order to make an environment that can recruit and retain employees? Is there a silver bullet, or is it a lot of like repeated hard work? What do you guys think?
Like culture versus perks.
Well, that's exactly right, Heidi. I'll take that on a little bit. You got to have an incentivized way to get them attracted to your company. That's number one. You got to come up with an incentivized system or process to get them attracted. Then you must, to me, you have to create this winning culture or successful culture that they want to be a part of. And so you got to have creativity to get them here, and then to retain them, you got to build a very successful culture, and you got to treat them like very valuable people, right? I mean, just like in the software business, 20 years ago, they were just movers, right? Well, today they don't want to be considered just movers. They want to be considered something special. And if you can make them feel that way inside your culture daily, you have a much better chance of retaining them. Otherwise, they're going to go looking for the next job that can make them feel good about what they do. So in our training programs, we've created a lot of different ways that we make them feel special, and that they have advanced opportunities. And if they work hard and they work smart and they work well, they can grow and move up. So if you don't give them that and create that opportunity for them and make that culture feel like they're part of something, they won't stick around. That's my feeling.
You know, just to add to what Kevin said, I think take a look more at in the office, your management team, whether it's a GM, manager of a department. I think the right people, there's still a group out there that have a great work ethic. They want to be a part, Kevin's on a winning team, but they want empowerment. They want the challenge. So it's not always just what is the paycheck. Yeah, the perks of some of the other creative things, that's fun, but a great person with some management skill wants the ability to succeed, and they want the ability to fail without getting terminated for it or yelled at. But I think there's a great group out there that still wants that opportunity. And as movers, especially those of us that have grown up in it, doing all of it, the tendency when you walk by just to, oh, let me fix this for you. Well, you've got to learn to say, walk by and say, if you need help, I'm down the hall, but don't just take that hot issue off their desk. They're going to say, well, what are you paying me for? Why do you give me the title if I don't get the chance to either succeed or fail? And that's not easy to do because it's so hard to get a driver, hard to get a great account, great salesperson, great employees. But you need to just let go at a certain point and trust who you hired or who's been on board for a number of years.
I mean, I 100% agree with both of these guys, and it is a large part of culture, but it is rolling up your sleeves and putting the effort in and finding people. And in order to do that, it's hard work. You know, you have to be willing to allocate a portion of your week to speaking to drivers and help and recruiting. And, you know, there were times this summer where I was recruiting drivers and I couldn't get them to come to Connecticut. I flew out to meet them, right? When we're done with their job, it's a lot of time and effort. It isn't going to just happen. You have to put the elbow grease in to make it happen. You know, at the end, you know, the driver count is up and your employee count is up and you have the proper staff to fulfill your obligations. And you look back and say, boy, I put in the hours and the hard work. I mean, it's really hard work, and you have to listen. You have to become a good listener to your people. You have to really try to have a common bond with them somehow, you know, find out what they like, what sports team they like, and, you know, align with them that way. And that's kind of what I think the guys on this call do, because they're very successful in retaining their people, you know.
Dan, I'm gonna come on the back. You know, I know we're killing this question with a lot of time, but this is kind of why I think people logged into this panel. One of the things you must become, and this is just, you must become a company of recognition, recognizing people for their outstanding efforts, and that's something that I'm seeing. We used to try to get the drivers on a conference call once a quarter. And we talked to them, and half of them would get on because they're across the United States, and the other half, you know, had family issues, they're off or whatever. So I came up with a plan called the podcast, the Ward Podcast. So every week I do a podcast and I read all the surveys that were great for the week and who got them and what account they were on or what customer. And just them drivers hearing their names mentioned on this podcast was amazing. Matter of fact, whoever got the most great surveys for the week got, you know, $1,000, and whoever got the second most great surveys got 500. And so you would not believe the great surveys that picked up just because they wanted their name mentioned, number one, and number two, if they got the most, they got a nice little bonus, right? So just that recognition and the fact that I could speak to the whole fleet in a podcast, because they can play that podcast tonight as they're driving down the road, if they're in their hotel room, if they're sitting at the restaurant having dinner, they can play that podcast at any time. And I reached every driver. Matter of fact, it got so addictive that they were calling me or texting me or emailing me if I didn't have the podcast out by Wednesday. They're like, aren't we having a podcast this week? And I mean, that's how much they were looking forward to that podcast every week, because they liked their names mentioned. They liked, you know, to be recognized in that fleet. So a company of recognition is extremely important. And you can do that for your laborers too. You just don't have to do it for drivers.
That's a really good idea. Having essentially it's a meeting,
I'm
but
sharing all my ward secrets with everybody.
a meeting, but you don't have to attend at the same time.
Right. And then you get your message out too about quality. If you have such certain issues that are happening, you
Yeah.
can address them, and you're talking to the whole fleet because they play it when they get time.
Yeah. You're communicating it in a way that works for them.
Yep.
They're driving, they're listening. It's perfect for them. I'm going to take back the reins and jump into a question about the recession. And there's a lot of questions in the Q&A box, and we will be answering them throughout and then at the end. But what are you guys all hearing about the recession, and what kind of changes are you starting to make in preparation, or what kind of changes are you making now? Matt?
Yeah, first I'm trying to get over just imagining eating dinner, listening to Kevin Ankenbauer on a podcast. So I'll keep that in mind tonight.
You got $1,000, you'd be interested.
I don't know, might ruin the steak. Heidi, to the point, what are we hearing? We're in it, we're gonna be in it. When's the bottom coming? It just depends who you're on the phone with or, what channel you have on the TV. I think for the industry, the industry had a great run for 22 months. And it was great to see for everybody, the small businesses, the large. I think we'd all agree, or at least the majority, that this winter is going to be more back to a 2018 or 19 winter. As far as how do you prepare for the recession, I think as business owners, we're making decisions all the time, some riskier than others, but I believe we're already in it. It's just a matter of when do we start coming out of it. So a lot of decisions we've been making over time, but without crippling our growth and long-term plans. We had an 8-year run looking to open up in Florida, and we opened up in September of last year, and we knew that at some point the COVID slowdown would come, the run would stop, but we're trying to be smart. We're trying not to put the sandbags up too quick, because again, it's an opportunity to grab market share, and market share isn't always just in sales, it's in hauling. Because, as a lot of movers will say, if you're going to sell it, you need to haul it. How we rely on the network is maybe a little bit different than Dan and Kevin, both between the Allied North American networks that we're fortunate to represent and service within. But I think one of the biggest things, and every business is different, in addition to the operating company, we're big on the real estate side. So we're trying to maintain that for the long-term business plan on paying ourselves rent so that we don't have a landlord who controls us, especially in the DC marketplace, where we were on the tenant side for too long. We got lucky and got on the fact where we control our own destiny anymore. So I think the three biggest things we're doing is focused on holding on to our talent, our people. We're not going to go slashing or cutting. We are getting better and looking at our expenses, because for the last 22 months, when shipments were you couldn't get a truck unloaded quick enough to reload it. Sometimes you get a little lazy in that area. But then the other thing is we're just trying to watch what long-term debt are we putting on the books. But again, that kind of started a couple of years ago. I'm not afraid to put it on the books if it's real estate, but everything else from the operating company, that's been important for us. But the biggest thing is how do we hold on to the talent and get through this? Again, hopefully we're at bottom soon and start coming out of it as a country and as a economy here.
I think moving companies, because they are run by mom and pop shops, or they're just smaller and tight knit. It's really good to hear that you do care a lot about your people. You're not just giving them the heads up that, hey guys, it's a recession, you might all get fired, like other industries. They do prepare the people. So that's really great to hear. And also, just another thought I had when you were speaking, I'm curious to know how many moving companies are starting to buy their warehouse and own that real estate, because it seems that it could be a big expense for them and that they might not have the funds to invest, but maybe it's 50% of moving companies that are starting to do that. Kevin?
Well, I look at the recession and I agree with Matt. I think we're already in it. I don't know if it's coming. I think it's here. But on the other hand, one thing I like about the moving industry is we're kind of recession trained. And I'll tell you why I say that. Because we go from high to low every year. I mean, we ramp up in April because we know May is going to be crunch time. And then we're going to be, crazy busy at 150% occupancy. And then we go down and then September hits and it all slows down again. So we're used to ramping up and ramping down. That's kind of what we do every year. I look at a recession, unless it lasts more than 2 years or a year and a half or whatever, then you got to start to get more cognizant of it. But we're used to ramping up and ramping down. That's kind of what we do every year. So it doesn't seem that, you prepare your balance sheet to prepare for those kind of ups and downs. And we have to stay liquid in so many areas because we know it's going to end. in 4 months, and we go back to winter cycle again and non-peak season. So you take care of your core staff, you take care of your core responsibilities, and then you use that other time to ramp up or ramp down with your summer help and all the other stuff that you do. So managing a recession in the moving industry seems easier than if I was in the retail business. I mean, that just, to me, that's what we do every year, is ramp up and ramp down. So I'll let you take it from there, Dan.
It's kind of a tough question to go third with these guys covered most of the answers, but one of the things that you can learn about a recession, you come out of a recession. And I'm going to kind of jump on what Matt said, no slashing or cutting. So we've been through several of these. We were through, the last one was 2008. We experienced a great recession. We always try to run nimble, be agile. I think a lot of what we've done here is we've cross-trained our people so we can move them from area to area, because if you're a diversified company, not all areas are impacted at the same time. So if your people are cross-trained, you can move them from place to place to place. One of the things in 2008, we kept all our people. We have every intention not only to keep our people, but to acquire new people in the recession, because I think it's a great recruiting tool. So if we got to come out of pocket and invest to get some good people, I think it's going to be a great time. Obviously, we don't wish a recession on anyone. I 100% agree with Kevin. I think we're already in it. It's here. But it's just a matter of the way we run our companies. I mean, the guys in this panel, they know where every penny is. I know we know where every penny is. I'm willing to make personal sacrifices for my people. I mean, in 2008, I discounted my salary to zero. I stopped taking rent from the buildings that I own, and we kept the staff on that way. Obviously, we would be agreeable to do the same thing. So.
Yeah, drastic actions, but I'm sure that all your employees really saw that you are leading by example. I'm just going to pivot to talk about a little bit about data and technology. We are already coming close to our 45 minutes. We might stretch this a little longer. So just going to pivot and then we'll open it up to Q&A. But Kevin, I'll have you start with this question. What kind of tech innovation do you want to see in the industry?
Well, I'll go back to that one answer I gave you about, I think the only way you're going to drive efficiencies in this business is through technology. Technology has got to be the game changer to me. As the needs of drivers are changing, the wants of drivers are changing, their specifics of what they want to do, where they want to go, and we've got to be able to get off the manual process and get to technology to run those diagrams and make sure that we can stay within those rules of engagement. So technology to me is the biggest game changer to driving. I mean, you can't ask the human body to do more than they do, right? I mean, you're already pushing them to limits during peak season at the highest level. And in sometimes, difficult weather environments, whether it's 118 in Phoenix or 105 in Texas with 100% humidity, you can only push the body so much to get efficiencies. But processes through technology can help eliminate deadhead in the highway, deadhead for drivers, load the trailers more up faster, quicker, and get them delivered faster. But only technology can do that. Unless you want to hire a whole bunch of brains to sit behind desks and with pencils and try to figure that out. But to me, the game changer has to be technology, getting software. And then another thing too is allowing van lines to integrate with software designers. I mean, we do everything double because we can't get them integrated. So, van lines have got to accept the fact that there are other software designers out there that they must integrate to help other agents that are not on a specific software. So getting van lines and agents or even independents integrated with certain things would be a lot easier and more efficient than what we're doing it today.
Yeah, we definitely run into that challenge.
Yep.
Dan, do you you have any ideas of
Yeah,
tech
I-
innovation?
Yeah, again, agree with Kevin, that the technology is the name of the game, especially along the planning side. One of the things that, is my pet peeve is these systems are too cumbersome and they don't interline with the van line as well as they should. So, in addition, our tariffs are very complicated. We have numerous tariffs over numerous corporate contracts. So the level of person that we have to bring in and the acquisition of that person and the timeline of training is a very long period. And again, I'm an advocate of getting the van lines together with a technology company like yourself and build a more user-friendly system. I don't think you can do that without simplifying the tariffs. The tariffs are so complicated. Everybody has a different tariff. And a tariff arrives at a price. I don't know why we don't have 3 separate tariffs and arrive at a price, with a discount. So I don't understand. You're going to still arrive at a price point that the client could live with. So again, it's just arduous and very cumbersome from my perspective. On one hand, your operational side might be good, but yet your accounting side is lackluster. I mean, so you can't have a system that handles both sides correctly. Like our system that we have now, our operating system, very good operational piece, very poor on the accounting side, from my perspective. Now, Kevin might think differently, or Matt, but it's not up to the standards and the levels of our companies at all.
Dan, I run the same system as you. I concur with that 100%.
I guess, Heidi, maybe to take a different twist from what Dan and Kevin said, the technology's there, but kind of Dan started, I just want to take a step further. We need to simplify it as an industry. On this call, I see there's 152 people. There's a number that are probably independents, aren't affiliated with a major van line. So they might not have that heartburn integration with their van line because it's just themselves. But, there's 4 main business channels. You got your consumer, your account, military, and then the GSA. And over the years, we've not made it easy on ourselves as an industry. It has nothing to do with what price we go at. We're all competitors. So I'm not talking about what price we go at, but what is the baseline that we're starting with as far as what's included in the move and what's not. It has nothing to do with the price, because it takes, I don't know, guys, you might disagree with me, 15 months to train someone in revenue accounting to learn how to rate a military shipment against a single factor national account, against a consumer price guarantee shipment. So I think as an industry, and obviously the military is a huge topic. I think that announcement or whatever the next phase is supposed to happen soon with the GHC, but there we go again, just all these different tariffs and baselines that we then come to software companies like Supermove and say, okay, figure out the secret sauce here so that we put the numbers in and the money goes all in the right places. As far as technology, and I know, Heidi, you're looking to go to questions, trying to get more technology to the drivers, it's tough. We've tried that with our fleet, had some success. Some great drivers, they're not up with the technology. I think there's more now today because the world is living off of iPhones and iPads. So I think the sooner we can go to electronic inventories as an industry, it will help us downstream after the move with claims resolutions and so forth, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I think technology is key. To Kevin's point, we need it, whether it's to efficiently dispatch or to Dan's point, to pay somebody. But I think as an industry, we need to make it a little easier on ourselves. It's a tough business.
Absolutely. It's tough. We got 150 people on the call feeling very similarly. To kind of go into the Q&A, I think a lot of people are dying with questions. Going off of this technology question, someone asked, how do you get employees and contractors to buy into using technology? Is it hard to train them, or what have you found to work well?
I can start that question off. We are getting adoption up through just a drop dead date, saying, you can ask all day long. It depends on who you're asking. If it's a younger generation, they adopt it much quicker than an older generation. So you just have to put a a date in the calendar and say, hey, this system has to be adopted by this time, or, something, you just can't get paid or something can't happen. They adopt at that point. If you make it a requirement, you get a lot quicker adoption.
But with that requirement, you got to back it with support. Dan made a comment earlier, you got to roll your sleeves up and put the elbow grease into it. You better have some middle management and top management that's going to sit with that driver or sit with that new office staff person. And even if that office staff's working remote from home, get on a Teams meeting or Zoom meeting and share the screen. You can't, I agree with Kevin, you need to say a drop dead date, but you better have more than enough support behind them, or you're going to run risk of losing a great person.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to just jump on what Matt said. It's got to be train the trainer. You have to have somebody inside your organization who knows the technology in and out and has the patience to educate and train that person internally.
Awesome.
And that wouldn't be me.
So as we kind of talk about this training piece, this also goes all the way back up to how we were talking about retention and culture. Someone on the call asked from Richard, Kevin, earlier you mentioned culture and success, and they feel like they have a great culture. It's gritty, it's family oriented, appreciative, but the goals are set really high. And sometimes those goals aren't hit and it doesn't feel like they're winning all the time. So how do you kind of balance the two?
Well, first of all, you got to set goals that are achievable. Number one, you can't set goals that are unachievable to begin with. So you set your goals and standardization with achievement, and then you train and you promote and you drive till we get them to where we want them. I'm not going to say you get 100% achievement, because you never will. But if you can get your ratio at 80% achievement of hitting certain goals and putting people in place to succeed, you got a pretty good culture, right? Because there's always going to be 2 out of 10 that's never going to see it your way, or they're never going to. But what you're trying to do is retain your employees at the highest level. No one can tell me that they retain 100% of their employees every single day. It's impossible, unless you have 3 and you can just take care of 3 people. But on a scale perspective, you've got to set goals that they can achieve and you can help them achieve them and get to that level. So it's the training and support behind the goal too. It's not just the goal itself. It's that winning culture, inviting them to win, showing them how to win, helping them win. That's extremely important to an employee.
Matt, Dan, anything to add onto that?
I think the challenge we have is there's so many different pieces to a move that can impact it. So when you're setting a goal for somebody in customer service, you need to challenge them, to Kevin's point, but they could do 110% of their job perfect, but yet the driver missed something or the claims manager missed something. So it's I think to Kevin's point, setting realistic goals, but also communicating with your team. If they don't hit them, say, hey, look, I understand there's some other factors here. It doesn't mean you give up or you don't shoot to improve, but in this industry, each department is relying on 3 or 4 other departments. There's no islands out there in this business on the household goods side.
I think as a manager too, you've got to look for the positives and try to reinforce those positives and continually work. And like Kevin said, everybody isn't gonna work out. It's going to be a percentage of your people who just don't fit your culture, and you have to move them out. Otherwise, you'll hurt the other good part of your team. So as a manager too, I don't like to catch everything. If I see somebody doing something, sometimes the beauty of management is I didn't see it. You let that go. And again, focus on the positive things. Try to build people up. And I think that's been a large part of our success.
We communicate at Ward that they're our investment, and you want your investments to be profitable and successful, and you want them to grow. And so we communicate to them that you're the most important thing right now to me because you're my investment. And it's my job to make that investment successful. Otherwise, who likes to have losing investments, right? Nobody. So we treat them as their kid gloves because we're putting a tremendous amount of money behind them and helping them get to where they need to be. So if you communicate that to them, you'd be surprised how much they get addictive to that.
Mm-hmm.
So
then when you invest in these people for all three of you, and you're looking at your company to determine these goals and to measure success, what are these like key metrics that you found to be the most important in order to measure success in these companies? And this will be the last question from the Q&A.
I'll take first shot at this. Internal customers and external. Customer feedback with the consumer, whether it be one-time COD move or national account or military member, we're getting that feedback. You need to share it. We're in the service business, and without customers, you don't have house of goods on the trailers. To me, that's a simple one. The other is we have to remind everybody it's a team. You've got internal customers. So how do you get some of that feedback? These guys have talked a lot about the fleets. We're in the same boat. We're relying on that long haul fleet and the short haul fleet. What's the feedback? Who are they thanking for the support, whether it's from somebody in your safety department, revenue accounting, accounts payable, and then getting that back to the person to say, hey, look, these 4 drivers all mention your name in particular. So again, for us, it's don't lose sight of the customer, but it's not just external customer, it's internal as well, in our opinion.
Kevin, I think you're next on this, right?
Yeah.
Key metrics.
I thought I answered that already with the investment on the employee, but
Any key metrics like dashboards that you look at or reports?
yeah, okay, the metric side. We look at employee turnover. We also incentivize the group, like our senior management, on employee turnover. So they're always making sure that every employee doesn't turn because it affects their incentive bonuses. So if you can incentivize the group as a whole, you'd be surprised how much they cross those alleys to go to another division to help out, because if they're all incentivized on total employee turnover, they all seem to want to try to hit that goal because it affects their paycheck too. So when I said you need to be a recognizing company, you need to be an incentive-based company too. To me, that's what drives you to excellence, is the fact that you measure employee turnover, you measure customer surveys, you measure excellence, and then you reward it. You've got to reward it. If you just measure it but don't reward it, it's nonsense. So in today's world, you better incentivize everything. That's my opinion, because if you don't, people go where there are incentives to do better.
Yeah, definitely.
From our perspective, there's so many different dashboards that we're looking at, obviously our month-to-month comparisons on our profit, employee turnover. We're looking at quality almost every day. I'm looking at productivity both on the accounting and customer service level every single day. We're looking at driver counts and revenue per trip, revenue per driver per month. So, obviously you see something that stands out, you're going to question, why did this one driver not make the kind of revenue he's used to making, so we have so many different ways of measuring. And I agree, if you're not incentivizing people with different things for every aspect of their job, they're gonna go where they're gonna get incentivized.
Yeah, you can value your people, but you also need to pay them well.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys all so much for this awesome panel, and just taking time out of your day to speak with all of us about challenges that you're facing, and just the industry as a whole. It's a group effort for all of us to push for positive change in the industry, I think. So, we're really excited to continue having these panels, and it really does start with, having the conversation, having the awareness out there. Once again, just wanted to conclude this roundtable. It was brought to you by Supermove. We're bringing the whole team to one system and make it as easy as possible to run your business through our software. If you're not using any moving software at all, and you're just curious to see what we're up to, how we can help you guys out, just sign up for a demo on our website, and you can mention that you attended this roundtable discussion with Dan, Matt, and Kevin. Any last words from the three of you?
Thank you for having us again. There are so many great companies out there that do so many great things. It's just too bad we can't assemble all the best practices amongst all these great companies, because I'm sure these 152 people that are attending have really good ideas too. It would be great to be able to put how to make the moving industry even greater is by practicing these kind of best practices amongst all moving companies. But they're shared secrets too. But I love this industry. I love the people in it, and I'm just thankful I've got 40 years of making a tremendous amount of friends and developing an award-winning company through innovation and technology and efficiencies and culture. So if I can give any advice to all these people on this call, develop a culture where people are proud to be a part of. That's the most important thing that I would be the takeaway.
Yeah, Heidi, my one last comment, as business owners, we're all dealing with a ton, but kind of as I started off, this industry, it's addictive. It becomes our friend group, and friends are competitors. It's not just those in the same common van lines, but I've got close friends that I compete with every day, and it's a neat group. Movers, we're resilient, to Dan's point and Kevin's, we've been through this, whether it's 08 and so forth, but it's also each normal winter comes through. So it's a great industry, and hopefully everybody gets through whatever this thing we're going through is, whether it started or not. So thanks for the invite today, Heidi.
Yeah, of course. Dan?
Thank you as well for the invite. This industry is amongst the hardest workers of any industry in the United States. And my respect goes out to anybody who's entered into this industry. It's not for the faint of heart at all. It's very, very difficult. And we don't get to go on the beach in the summertime. We're working. Most of us are taking our jobs home every night. So it's you give up a lot, but it is worth a lot. It's very rewarding to be in this industry.
Awesome. Well, there were a lot more questions that were answered, so we'll have to do a round 2 of this or continue with our panels next year. But thank you again for attending, to all the 150 participants that tuned in with us. And yeah, thank you to the panelists. This was awesome. I learned so much and really enjoyed just being able to connect with you guys all. And for those that want to stay tuned to our other panels, you can follow us on social media. But for now, we'll separate and see y'all later.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.